Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. I'm Dave, in this episode 3872 BN. Today's date is March 30th, 2026, and the title of the episode is Trump is Liberating Us from the Deep State System, 20% Public for Justice, 80% Dark Ops Necessary. What do Mark Zuckerberg, Bezos all have in common other than showing up in Epstein's inbox? They're all building multi-million-dollar bunkers and stocking them with gourmet freeze-dried meals. When billionaires and insiders stop buying art and trinkets and start stacking 30-year food supplies in their $50 million bunkers, it's because they know something we don't. Freeze-dry wholesalers lets regular people have access to the same high-quality USA-raised, delicious freeze-dried foods that the top 1% are filling their bunkers with, except without the billionaire budget. Over 300 meals to choose from. Grass-fed burgers, sirloin steaks, ribeyes, scrambled eggs, pizza, and sushi. Even things to satisfy your sweet tooth like Hostess cupcakes and pound cake. All freeze-dried and have a shelf life of 30-plus years. Stop stacking your food supply with chalky MREs because when it hits the fan, food morale is one of the first things to go. And by the way, this is not just for emergency preparedness. You can have nutritious, healthy, and great-tasting snack or meals anywhere or anytime, even while hiking or camping, and they make them all for all kinds of specialized diets: keto, paleo, Atkins, etc., and other dietary requirements, food allergies, gluten intolerance, etc. Affordable and ready to eat in just minutes. So go check them out at freezedrywholesalers.com/X22 and use code X22 for 15% off your order, or just click the link in the description. Let's get into the economic collapse, political and geopolitical news. Now, the deep state, the corrupt politicians, big tech fake news, the puppet masters, you could see what Trump is doing. Now, he promised to basically liberate us and actually take back the country from the deep state players. And we know going back in time that the military was the only way. What are you seeing across the globe? Is the military being used? Remember, we were told the military was the only way. Did everyone think that the military was only going to be used to take control of the riots and maybe round people up? The military was the only way to take back control from the deep state system. The system that they created over many, many years. It just didn't happen over 5 years. It's been happening since the central bank system came into existence in 1913. It's been happening since we came off the gold standard in 1971. And yes, it accelerated over time. Their system expanded. Their system grew. They became more and more powerful. And as they gained power, they controlled regions across the globe. They expanded their money laundering system. They expanded the drug trade, the oil trade. They expanded the deep state system that they have created. And when Trump says he's going to liberate us, he's liberating us from the deep state system. That is what he's doing. And yes, he's using the military. We've always known the military was the only way. He used the military in Venezuela. He used the military to remove Maduro, to set the country free. To remove the deep state players, which is the cartels. Those are the foot soldiers of the deep state players in the Western Hemisphere. He's using the military in Iran to remove the deep state players, the terrorists in Iran, and to remove the deep state central bankers that have control over energy in that region. He's using the military to do this because the military was the only way. He's going to be using the military to put pressure on Cuba. Will he be invading Cuba? Most likely not. Will he assist Cuba after the people say we've had enough because of the blackouts and everything else? I do believe so. I think he's already letting everyone know this. So Trump is using the military because the military is the only way. And this is what we were told was going to happen. And yes, the military will also be used when the deep state players push riots in this country. You will see the National Guard. We know the Marines can work with the National Guard. So once again, Trump is doing exactly what was planned out from the beginning. And you're not going to see everything. We were told this. 20% is going to be public. Why would 20% be public? This way, so we can have justice in the end. This way, so people understand who the guilty parties are. Now, again, Trump doesn't want to go too deep because, again, you would have societal collapse. People wouldn't be able to handle what's really going on in this world. People can barely handle what's going on right now. So 80% are going to be dark ops, and that is absolutely necessary. So when you hear Trump saying, listen, we're going to have regime change in Iran, does he mean regime change just in the leadership in Iran? Or is there going to be regime change in those individuals that control the energy, that part of the world? When he speaks to the Iranian government right now, is he just speaking to the Iranian government? Because think about it. He's already named the targets. The targets will destroy Karg, their oil distribution. We will destroy their energy plant. We will destroy everything that they have so they cannot operate whatsoever. Yeah, Iran won't be able to operate, but who else will not be able to operate? The deep state players, the central bankers in that region. He's telling them, if you do not relinquish your power, the power that you have had over many, many years, over what goes in and out of the strait, I will destroy it all right in front of your eyes, and you will have nothing left. Remember, the U.S. doesn't need this oil. The EU does. The deep state players do. And Trump is saying, listen, go ahead. You don't believe me? You don't think I'm going to do this? Test me. Now, I do believe that Trump already has control of the strait. He already has control over who can go in and out. But he wants the deep state players. And remember, you have to go back in time a little bit. Trump is letting us know, he let us know that he was playing chess. He was playing chess with very smart people. He was playing chess against violent people. He was playing chess against nice but violent people. And basically, I think Trump is now forcing them to relinquish power over Iran, relinquish power over what they've been doing in the region. And once he gets them to relinquish this power, I do believe Trump, all of a sudden you'll see this strait open up. Because once again, I believe Trump now is showing the deep state players, right now I have control. I have control over the whole region. I want you to completely and utterly back down. Because look, I just let ships through. Who is he demonstrating this for? Is it for we the people? Yes. When you look at the public version of it, yes, the people are seeing Iran now is negotiating with Trump. Iran now is letting a couple of ships go through. And on the public stage, it looks good. Behind the scenes, I do believe Trump is speaking to other individuals and actually putting pressure on them. That is the 80% side of it. And we've seen this because, again, all you got to do is look at the fake news. Look at the stories that they're putting out. They keep putting out the stories. And again, where are they getting these stories from? You think they're actually doing investigative journalism? You think they're actually doing some research here? Or is somebody feeding the information, trying to push a certain narrative, trying to push Trump into bringing the troops onto the soil of Iran? Because again, these individuals, and I'm not talking about Iran, I'm talking about the individuals in the background. They know if it's a land war, this could go on for a while, which means they do not have to relinquish control. Trump is using Sun Tzu Art of War right now, naming targets, saying, I will destroy what you put into place so nobody will have it. And the U.S. doesn't need it. Think about what he just did right now. And you could see that there are two things happening at the same exact time. And this is what it means when Trump says we're going to be taking back the country. We're going to have Liberation Day because we're going to be liberated from the deep state system that they put into place. And yes, he's using the military to take back control because it's the only way. That's why. And when you start to look at it, you could see this is exactly what he's doing. Now, what's very interesting is when you go out to Belarus, you could see that a lot of political prisoners are being freed right now. And Trump now is making deals across the globe to free prisoners. He put this out on Truth. He said, last week, my envoy to Belarus, John Cole, after negotiating with highly respected President Alexander Lukashenko, got 250 more political prisoners freed. This brings the total prisoners gracefully released by President Lukashenko to well over 500 since last May. I would like to give my warmest thanks to the president for doing this, and I look forward to being with him at the next Board of Peace meeting, President DJT. So the prisoners that have been held hostage around the world, they're now being released one by one, if you look at it, or maybe a lot more than just one by one, but you could see they're being released at this point. But you could see the deep state players, they really don't like what Trump is doing because, again, he has the Board of Peace. He's bringing peace to the Middle East. He wants peace across the globe. He's removing the deep state system, the system that created the wars, the system that created the terrorism. He's removing it and dismantling it every step of the way. And what is the deep state trying to do? They're actually trying to bring us to war. I mean, we mentioned this yesterday when a drone flew into Finland and the president of Finland came right out and said, no, this is not from Russia. It's not from China. It's not from North Korea. It's from Ukraine. So let's not get excited here. Let's not start World War III. But you could see what's happening right now. Ukraine is being instructed, and they want war to start. They want the countries to be involved. They want everyone to come in and assist. This is what they've been trying to do for a very long time. Remember when Ukraine said, hey, Russia fired a missile into Poland, and it turned out it was a Ukrainian missile once again. But you can see Ukraine, what do they want? And Last Refuge put this out. Ukraine wants to start a war with Poland, making it look like Russia did it. And yes, every step of the way, you can see this is exactly what Ukraine, the deep state players, the EU, is trying to do. They're trying to push a false flag every step of the way. And what's very interesting is that Brave Romania put this out. Now, think about what's holding the deep state players from pushing a false flag, trying to convince the world that Russia did it. Well, I do believe what's holding them back right now is that Trump has a relationship with Putin. And Trump and Putin, and I do believe Xi, and of course Kim Jong-un, they're all on the same side right now. And I don't mean, they're all buddy. Remember, each leader, they protect their own nation. But I do believe they have an understanding. And I do believe that if something should occur, Putin would call Trump would call Putin and say, you know something, we're not going to war over this. We know it wasn't either of our sides. We know this was a false flag. So if you're going to try to start a war and you needed a false flag, what needs to happen? You need to remove a leader. Now, they tried removing Trump. That didn't work. They tried to remove Putin. Remember going back a little bit in time? I think this was back in 2023. And we had the Wagner Group rebellion. Well, it looks like they might be trying this once again. What do I mean by this? It's called regime change. Brave Romania put this out and said, Russian pro-Kremlin blogger warns of a new February 1917. That's interesting. A well-known Russian nationalist blogger and strong supporter of the war in Ukraine, Maxim Kalishnikov, also known as Z Patriot, has issued a strong warning about growing instability inside Russia. In his recent statements, Kalishnikov says Russia is on the edge of a new February 1917, referring to the revolution that overthrew the Russian Tsar and led to the collapse of the Russian Empire. He warns that something bad is happening and that the country faces dramatic events that could threaten its current form. So think about this. 1917, they're talking about regime change here, an uprising. And we know from the posts, it used to be Hunt for Red October. Then they said drop the hunt and just say Red October. So it's very interesting that this is coming out right now because, again, if you're going to start a war, you need different leadership that will go along with what you want. So is the deep state, are they going to try something maybe in October? This is very, very interesting. Spetsnaz Z007 said, "That makes no sense at all. I live in Russia. What are you talking about? Sure, not everyone loves Putin's style of warfare, but what particular incidents could lead to a military takeover Prigozhin tried and failed? And why does your pro-Russian source have .ua? That's interesting." So it sounds like the deep state is going to try once again to have a regime change in Russia. And again, like we said 3 years ago, the Wagner Group tried and they led this rebellion. They had tanks. They were heading towards Moscow. They were going to remove Putin. And then all of a sudden, Putin intervened and basically worked out a deal. And that didn't happen whatsoever. So once again, as this person is coming out saying that something's going to happen, just like it did in 1917, that reminded me of Red October. We were told to drop the hunt. So as the deep state players, as they become very, very desperate, as we get closer and closer to the midterms, are they going to try to push something? And is this why Trump went into Iran right now and also Venezuela to basically shut down the deep state players from everything that they were going to try to do? Because again, if you had a distraction in Russia and maybe Iran or North Korea fired missiles and maybe there was a nuclear incident or something, I do believe we would have a disaster on our hands. So I think Trump, piece by piece, what he's doing right now, he's trying to shut down everything that they were trying to do. And you could see the deep state players, they're panicking, but they're still going along with their plan, which is very, very interesting. And Trump now, when we look at what's going on with Cuba, he is going to allow a Russian oil tanker to go to Cuba. He says, "We don't mind having somebody get a boatload because they need to survive. I prefer letting it in, whether it's Russian or anybody else, because the people need heat and cooling." And Trump said that within a period of time, the country is going to fail and we will be there to help him out. So I do believe his strategy in Cuba right now is basically they're not getting the oil from Venezuela. The leadership, they have no power. There's no money flowing into the country. The country is desperate. It's having a tough time. And I do believe in the end, the people are going to say enough is enough. And the people are going to say, we need assistance. We need help. And you can see that Trump, he has now brought in a boat, letting a boat pass. And the people are seeing that Trump is actually bringing in fuel into the country. So I do believe in the end, what's going to happen is the people are going to actually request that Trump assist with the country. And eventually they will throw the leadership out because I think they're pretty much done with it at this point in time. And I do believe that the people will probably mostly call out for assistance in the end, especially when they take over their old government and they actually have regime change. So when you start to really look at this, you can see the deep state players, they're losing control over everything. They're losing control over Cuba. They lost control over Venezuela. Pretty much Colombia, not on their side. Soon Mexico is going to fall with the cartels. And I do believe the leadership in Brazil is going to change and Lula is going to be out. And we're going to see new leadership. Maybe Bolsonaro is going to come back into play and he will take over the country. But we'll have to see how that plays out. But you can see that step by step, what Trump is doing right now, he's dismantling the deep state players across the globe. In certain areas, he does not need the military. In certain other areas, he needs the military because, again, you're going up against a deep state force that has entrenched themselves in these areas, and they built up many, many protections. Just like with Iran, they use Iran as a major protection because, again, missiles were brought into there. They were used to scare off anyone that was trying to shut anything down in the Middle East. And they were able to keep control over that system during the past time. But now everything now is changing. And you could see every step of the way, Trump is letting everyone know that he is in complete and utter control. I mean, look at Spain right now. The socialist leader have declared the airspace off limits to U.S. planes in Iran. And think about this. Why would the Spanish defense minister announce that Spain has closed its airspace to U.S. planes involved in the Iran war? When we're all part of NATO, we're all supposed to support each other. Everyone's our allies. Why would they come out and do this? Well, look at the UK. They were in bed with Iran. They were making a lot of profits from the Iranian oil field. So once again, they didn't want that to end. Does Spain, do they have any connection to Iran? Well, it looks like they have a little bit more of a connection to China, and China might be leveraging this connection. Spain maintains a broad, active, and expanding set of partnership and formal agreements with China, centered on comprehensive strategic partnership established in 2005. These ties are primarily economic and focus on trade, investment, renewable energy, technology, and cultural educational exchanges. The foundational bilateral relationship regularly reaffirmed at the highest levels. The Spanish King Felipe VI's state visit to China in November 2025, and basically now they have a working relationship. So the bilateral trade volume is around 50 to 57 billion in 2024 to 2025. And the major Chinese investment in Spain is green transition. Very interesting. Envision Group, 1 billion, electrolyzer factory, High Green Energy and Partners. And China pretty much has their claws in Spain. So is China quietly leveraging its strong economic ties with Spain to encourage Spain's refusal to help the U.S. with Iran operation? Was the UK pushing back because they had a deal with Iran and they were making a lot of money? So when you start to look at all these different nations, you could see that the Iran, China, they have a lot of leverage over our supposed allies. And Trump wanted the world to see this, and he's proving it every step of the way. And that could be the reason why Spain doesn't want the U.S. to use their airfields, because China say, listen, no, we were getting cheap oil from there. We don't give them assistance, or, in our deals, something might happen. They might be using leverage, or maybe they just have TDS. That could be it too. But I do believe it's probably a little bit of leverage from China, because this is the way China works behind the scenes. But you can see every step of the way, Trump is showing the deep state players, showing China he's completely and utterly in control of what is really going on in Iran right now. And at a moment's notice, he can destroy anything that he wants. Mary Nafal put this out and said, IRGC storage facilities in Kian Shar, southeast of Tehran, have been completely decimated by U.S. and Israeli strikes. War Horizon says the ongoing U.S. military campaign against Iran, now in its roughly fourth week, continue with intensified airstrikes focusing on degrading Iran's missiles and weapons production infrastructure. Key developments in the last 24 hours, strikes on Tehran and weapons sites, multiple waves of attacks hit northern eastern Tehran and around 40 facilities tied to ballistic missiles, long-range systems, anti-tank weapons, and related R&D production. High-volume target confirmed. IRGC Naval Command Aliyah Reyes Tagsiri killed in Bandar Abbas. Other targeted actions, reports of targeted killing in Zanjan. Broader pressure on military naval sites, including in the south. Iranian responses, continued missile drone barrages against U.S. interest in Gulf targets, including a strike on Kuwait desalination power facility. So Trump, he definitely has the upper hand right now. And every time they push Iran to fire back, they know exactly where it's coming from and they destroy it. And slowly but surely, Iran is having a very difficult time, because sooner or later they're going to run out of missiles, they're going to run out of drones, and they will have nothing left. And every time they open up and fire, because if you really think about it, Trump and team and Israel, they're kind of baiting them. Every time they all of a sudden fire, they know where it's coming from. They see the maps light up. They know exactly where it is. And they have the bombers flying over with bunker buster bombs, and they're basically destroying their underground facilities. So soon they're going to have pretty much absolutely nothing. I think Trump right now has pretty much control over the whole entire region, especially the Strait of Hormuz. But what's very interesting about all these missiles is that a leading expert on the Iran-North Korea alliance warns that the North Korean missile technology and assistance are directly powering Iran's ongoing attacks on U.S. facilities and Israeli targets. Iran launched 2 intermediate-range ballistic missiles toward the U.S.-UK base at Diego Garcia, roughly 2,500 miles away, using a Musadan-type system originally acquired from North Korea in 2005. The partnership operates as a straightforward exchange. North Korea provides weapon systems, technology, engineers, and underground facility expertise. Iran pays with cash and oil. North Korea built missile tests and tracking facilities inside Iran and helped extend the range and lethality of Iranian strikes against U.S. bases, Israeli cities, and Arab neighbors. Iran purchased 19 of these systems from North Korea and took delivery in 2005. So basically, Iran and North Korea, they're both involved in missile technology, cash, and oil. And I do believe, since we were told, that uranium flowed from Russia, actually from the U.S. to Russia, from also Canada to Syria to Iran and North Korea. If we go back to post 751, this is February 13th, it says Operation Merlin, Iran, North Korea, Iran deal, funding. Iran to North Korea, T-cells, pay off. North Korea nuclear, mini SUC, ICBM SUC. War engine, protection. So it looks like these two nations were working together. The deep state was working to make these nations powerful. To do what? To start World War III. But again, Trump pretty much went into North Korea, not with the military. He went in there by himself, spoke to Kim Jong-un, walked across the DMZ. He wrote letters to him. So I do believe that part of the equation is controlled by Trump right now. Iran now is losing control. The deep state is losing control over them. And soon they won't have that piece either. So when you remove North Korea and you remove Iran, what do you have left? Not much. Because you have to remember, going back in time, they were going to use these nations to push a greater war, which would then suck in Russia. It would suck in China. But it seems that is not going to happen at this point in time. And Trump, going back in time, he has always said that we should go into Iran, which we'll be getting to in just a sec. But he also said something else that's very interesting. He said, to be honest with you, my favorite thing is to take the oil in Iran, but some stupid people back in the U.S. say, why are you doing that? But they're stupid people. And he's absolutely right. Because once again, when you look at the situation, we have complete and utter control. And from everything that has happened, we should take some of the oil to pay for what we had to do in Iran. Why not? Very, very interesting. Clandestine put this out and said, Trump says we're weeks ahead of schedule with Iran, that he's making progress with the newest group of Iranian representatives, that they have given us another 20 boats of oil, and that he feels confident a deal could be finalized soon. Positive developments. So yes, I do believe Trump now is speaking to those people that decided, the deep state players, well, we're not dealing with them anymore. We need to stop this. The country is a complete and utter mess. They do not have any strength whatsoever. They're running out of missiles, running out of drones. They lost control of the Strait completely. And I do believe what Trump is doing right now, he's using the art of war, and this is the public side. Now, I think we can all agree that lately everything going on in the world, and specifically our country, just feels loud all the time, and everyone wants you pulled into the noise. It's important to stay grounded and focus on things that help counter that. And I have something simple and meaningful that does exactly that. It's this sterling silver cross necklace, and on its box are words that have guided our country for generations. In God we trust. For me personally, pieces like this are a quiet reminder to slow down, not to react, to respond with patience instead of frustration, to choose faith over fear, and to remember that real strength comes from trusting his plan, not forcing outcomes. A lot of us feel right now a pullback to core values, faith, country, family, the same values many Americans rally around when they feel the nation drifting, and the same reasons so many still stand firmly in support of President Trump today. But this isn't about shouting politics or making a spectacle. It's not about yard signs or slogans. It's about keeping your faith strong, especially when the world feels like it's getting crazier by the day. Because at the end of the day, there can only be one side worth standing on, and that's God's side. Sometimes smaller symbols carry the greatest weight. If this resonates resonates with you, I've put the link below the video in the description. That link is themagaoffers.com/X22Cross. You'll get 50% off your sterling silver cross using my link, and it's a meaningful piece you can wear daily or give to someone who'd appreciate the reminder. Again, that link is themagaoffers.com/X22Cross for 50% off while supplies last. Or if you prefer, you can call in to explore even more deals at 855-550-6242 with promo code X22Cross, or just click the link in the description. To show that, hey, do you want Iran to still control this area, or should we take control of it? And just the other day, we mentioned something about tollables, which is very, very interesting. So during an interview with ABC, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio noted Iran's proposal of creating a $2 million tolling system for the Strait of Hormuz, saying that that's not going to be allowed to happen, further adding that U.S. President Donald J. Trump has a number of options available to him to stop the aforementioned proposal from being enacted. And he says that they have other options, U.S. soldiers, special forces to the Middle East, and Trump is mulling a possible ground operation. So remember, going back a little bit in time, we said that eventually what was going to happen is that, yes, Iran was going to set up a toll system. And for any ship to pass through, it's going to cost $2 million. Do you think the world is going to be okay with this? Now, I do believe what's going to happen is the world is going to have to make a decision. And I do believe Trump is using this to force the world to say, no, we cannot allow this to happen. Remember what John Conrad said. The closure is really a sorting mechanism. Iran decides who trades and who does not, unless the U.S. Navy reopens it for everyone on Americans' term. That's the decision the world has to make. Let Iran pull up a toll booth or stop blocking Trump's maritime plans. So basically, the deep state players, they had control over the region. They were working with Iran. They got the oil through the Strait of Hormuz. Did they have to pay $2 million? No. So now the installed leadership, taking instructions from the deep state players, everyone's going to have to make a decision. Either you keep the toll booth and everyone pays $2 million. Remember, the U.S. doesn't use that oil. The fear is gone. Everyone's just paying a toll. The countries around that area will have to pay. The United States, we're going to be drilling like crazy. We're independent. So Trump is now setting it up where the people of the world are going to have to make a decision. Tell me what you want me to do. Now, I do believe Trump has always had control of the strait right now. He's just setting this up. What do you want me to do? Do you want me to just leave it and you just pay $2 million at the toll booth? Or do you want to take control of the strait? I wonder what they're going to do. But think about this. All those people that saying Trump is controlled by Israel and he's doing Israel's bidding and Israel forced him to go into war. It's kind of ridiculous because if you go back a little bit in time to the 80s, Trump said it back then. You're trying to tell me that Israel was controlling him back then and they told him what to say? Of course not. It's absolutely ridiculous. Trump has always said the same exact thing over and over and over. And we know that the military was going to be used because it was the only way. And what are you witnessing? You're witnessing just that. Did you really think it was just going to be in this country? Did you really think they were just going to use the military just to round up Hillary Clinton and Obama and everyone else? I mean, really think about this for a second. But take a listen to what Trump said back then.
I'm running for the presidency. I'm here because I'm personally tired of seeing this great country of ours being ripped off.
But as far as Trump is concerned, our allies are only part of the problem. The real culprit is Iran.
Why couldn't we go in and take over some of their oil, which is along the sea?
How would you do that? Would you send in the Marines? Would you take a chance in a war?
Let them have Iran. You take their oil. That's what
How?
How?
I mean, do we want a war? What do you mean we take their oil?
You go in. You're
How do we go in?
You're going to have a war by being weak.
Okay, how do we go in? What do we do?
Excuse me. Yeah? You're going to have a war, and it's going to start in the Middle East.
What if the Soviet Union said, you do this to Iran, we're going to come in?
I don't believe they'd do it. The next time Iran attacks this country, go in and grab one of their big oil installations, and I mean grab it and keep it. and get back your losses, because this country has lost plenty because of Iran.
So think about everything that you're seeing right now. Remember, Trump is using the art of the deal, art of the war, and basically putting pressure on the deep state players. There's a public version and there's a behind the scenes version. And you just need a little bit so that people understand what's going on while the rest is happening behind the scenes. But it looks like Secretary Scott Bessent, he's letting everyone know that, yes, the U.S. and others, they will control the strait in the end. Trump War Room put the sentence that over time, the U.S. is going to retake control of the straits, and there will be freedom of navigation, whether it's through the U.S. through U.S. escorts or a multinational escort. I think Trump would like it to be a multinational escort because, again, then the world is involved in this and they're protecting the entire region. And they will make sure that Iran doesn't do anything. And I do believe he wants something like that, just like the Board of Peace. Maybe it'll be connected to the Board of Peace. Wouldn't that be very, very interesting? But Trump, he's giving a warning now, not just to Iran, but also the deep state players, and probably China, which is included in all this. The United States of America is in a serious discussion with a new and more reasonable regime to end our military operation in Iran. Great progress has been made, but for any reason, a deal is not shortly reached, which it probably will be. And if the Hormuz Strait is not immediately open for business, we'll conclude our lovely stay in Iran by blowing up and completely obliterating all of their electric generating plants, oil wells, and Karg Island, and possibly all desalination plants, which we have purposely not yet touched. This will be in retribution for our soldiers and others that Iran has butchered and killed over the old regime's 47 years reign of terror. Thank you for your attention to this matter, President DJT. So let me just read this quote from Sun Tzu. The supreme art of war is to subdue the enemy without fighting. The highest form of strategy is breaking the enemy's will before you have to destroy them on the battlefield. He deliberately lists the targets they have purposely not yet touched: electric generating plants, oil wells, Karg Island, Iran's main oil export terminal, and even desalination plants. He is positioning right now. He's showing them, listen, I have all the power. I can just snap my fingers and all of this will be gone. If all of that is gone, you have no power in the region whatsoever. It's done. And all the oil and everything that you were controlling before goes up in smoke. You have nothing. So he's making the punishment so devastating and specific that the enemy knows exactly what they'll lose if they don't comply. The threat is tied directly to two clear conditions: quick deal and Hormuz Strait open for business. By posting it publicly on Truth, what is he doing? He's broadcasting the message to Tehran, the deep state players, the people of Iran, the world at the same time. He's speaking to the deep state players. Relinquish your power in this region, or you'll have nothing. You'll have no power whatsoever. It's your choice. How do you want to play this? Your move. I do believe Trump has checkmate in this situation right here. So basically, who's he really talking to when he says open the strait? When he says regime change, what is he really saying? Is it the regime in Iran? Yep. Yes, there's going to be a new regime. But what other regime is he changing? Who really controls the region? The strait. That's his target. That's his goal. And that reminds me of Post 189. November 21st, 2017. The world is fighting back and destroying the cult. 20% public, 80% private. The world would otherwise collapse. 40,000-foot view, again, and need to decrease altitude to avoid conspiracy label, was necessary. Godfather 3, for God and Country. Then if we look at Post 190, November 22nd, 2017, if we go down to the bottom, it says, they are puppets, they are weak, they are scared. So when you really look at Starmer, Merz, the EU, they're all puppets. They're weak, they're scared. 80% dark ops necessary, 20% public for justice. The stage must be set. Have faith. And yes, what we're witnessing is the 20% right now. And the 20% is what people understand. Because again, the deep state players, they kept this narrative up of nuclear weapons, uranium, and things like that. And what has he been focusing on? Has he been saying, we're going in to get the uranium? Oh, we're going to dig it out. Oh, we're going to find it all. No, if you notice, his conversation has revolved around the Strait. His conversation has revolved around Carg Island, the electrical plants, not the uranium. Don't you find that interesting? Because that is the power in the region. Iran was just the protection for that power. They used Iran to protect what they had. In Venezuela, they had Maduro to protect what they had. Yes, they had the foot soldiers, the cartels, the gang members, and everything else. Same thing out in the Middle East. They had the terrorists to protect and keep chaos in that region. Remember, they created this system, and they made it stronger and stronger over time. Now Trump is dismantling it, just like he's dismantling it in this country. And in this country, in the U.S., you could see every day people are starting to realize that everything the deep state players are doing, it's not grassroots, it's fake, it's phony, and they do not have the power. Wall Street Apes put this out and said, there it is, on the ground, journalists in Los Angeles, California shows entire streets full of buses used to bus in No King's Day protesters. He walks over and there are lines of these buses used to transport protesters. It's all paid and organized. Absolutely. Tony Sarugo says, all carefully staged, predominantly white, around 86%, majority female, roughly 57% of women, college educated, strong overrepresentation of college graduates, often 3 to 1 or higher compared to the general U.S. population, where approximately 35 to 40% of adults 25 plus hold a bachelor's or higher. Age median around 51, with a large mix of older participants, 67 plus via groups like Third Act, alongside a handful of younger and middle-aged adults. Political lean, overwhelmingly left-leaning, open border, pro-abortion, Democratic voting. Absolutely. And you could see that most of these people, they have no idea what they're actually doing. They don't understand the true story. There was an Iranian woman that went up to one of the protesters out in the UK, I do believe, and said, listen, I'm Iranian. They had me in prison. They torture women. You have no idea what you're doing. And eventually, after a while, the woman said, I'm sorry. And she said, I'm not going to be carrying this sign anymore. She started crying. So most of these people, they've been kept in the dark because, again, what are they watching? They're watching CNN. They're kept in their little bubble, and they don't like to go outside of that little bubble. And when we talk about paying these people, it doesn't mean, they're coming off the bus and they're getting $5 or $10 or anything like that. Basically, the entire organization, everything that was set up, was being paid for. Data Republican explains and says the following. The left's favorite move when confronted with evidence is to mock an argument nobody made. Nobody said the rank-and-file people who showed up yesterday were paid. What Astra Nomani was documented with thorough receipts is the infrastructure that put them there, the grants that funded the texting campaigns, the printing presses, the advertisements, the logistic coordination for parking and transportation, the signs making sessions days before, the organizers caught on video stating their objectives explicitly. That's an industry, and it's flush with money, not just from the usual source adjacent networks, teachers, union grants, institutional foundations, CCP money, even federal science funding. Look at NSF grants in hard sciences, and you'll find DEI compliance language promising to raise up leaders from underdeserved communities. It feeds the same pipeline. Countless billions are being spent by organizers who openly describe their efforts in terms of color revolution and regime change to kick Trump out. That's what Nomani reports on. That's what's leaking out to the public consciousness. That's what they don't want you looking at. And think about what Data Republican said. They're looking to have a color revolution, a regime change. What did Trump create here? He created a counter-revolution. Because you have an insurgency and you have a counterinsurgency. Again, we've said this many times before. The counterinsurgency is the presidency, the control of the military, and the control of the people. This is why Trump has brought us down this path, and this very, very specific path. And when you look at the No Kings rally compared to the pro-Trump rally, you can see the grassroots pro-Trump rally is much, much larger. And again, this is what happens a lot of these times. When people see the protests, the fake news likes to make them bigger than they really are. So even if you had 1 million people, let's say, which I don't believe it's that big, then you, on the other side, who didn't protest, you have 80, 90. I mean, think about, let's just use the people that voted for Trump. If you have 1 million people protesting, you have 70 million or 80 million that voted for Trump. Which is bigger? You just didn't see it. Just because you don't see it doesn't mean it's not there. Right Angle News Network put this out and said, shocking video is going viral showing the contrast between a mass pro-Donald Trump rally in Washington, D.C. that the media refused to report on and a much smaller anti-Trump No Kings protest in Chicago that was widely covered nationwide. Now, why would they do that? Think about that for a second. I think that tells you everything you need to know. And the other thing that tells you everything you need to know is that it looks like Scott Bessent, he is now launching a new program that will reward tipsters with up to 30% of the fines imposed on criminals who are trying to bleed U.S. taxpayers dry. And what's very interesting is he's saying that 700 leads on fraud have come in through the new whistleblower program, and whistleblowers can earn up to 30% of recovered funds to expose scams. So basically, we're using what the deep state players have always used against us. I mean, think about COVID and guns. Hey, see something, say something, report these people. Now, you could see that the Trump administration is now going to pay people to find the scammers. So they're going to see something. They're going to say something. Very, very interesting. And all the rumors of Trump getting rid of DNI Tulsi Gabbard is completely fake, phony, and false. Eric Doherty put this out and said, Trump says she's a little softer on Iran, but still available to serve. Yeah, sure. I mean, she's a little bit different, Trump says, in her thought process than me. But that doesn't make somebody not available to serve. I think she's probably a little bit softer on that issue, but that's okay. Some people are. Most people aren't. So basically, he has no problem whatsoever with Tulsi Gabbard. So that entire push to try to get her out or whatever, what was going on, is not working whatsoever. I do believe Trump, he spent a lot of time picking the people that he actually wanted in these key positions because, again, in his first term, what happened? Most of the people were handed to him. This time around, he had to find trusted people to put into these positions to carry out the operations that need to be done in order to bring all these people to justice. And this is why he put these people into position. And you can see the deep state players, Trump has trapped them once again, because if you really think about it, Trump now wrote an executive order to give the TSA agents back pay and to actually pay them. So now the Ds are left in a very strange position because what do? Do they sue to take their pay away? Do they try to stop the pay that Trump wants to give them? How does that look on the world stage? Awaken Outlaw put this out and said, imagine being forced into the position where Dems have to undertake emergency litigation to keep TSA agents from being paid and then having to sell that to the public. Remember, the Dems have been gaslighting the country into believing that they're the ones trying to fund them. It is completely and utterly blown up in their face. And you could see that every step of the way, Trump is now putting pressure on the Dems once again, because the Ds, they are trying to push the Affordable Care Act. And Trump is saying, listen, yeah, let's do it. Let's, instead of giving the insurance companies the money, since you're for the people, and he's talking to the Ds, since you're for the people, let's give the money directly to the people. Now, he's actually trapped them in this too, if you really think about it. Because what are they going to say? No, the people don't deserve it. They have to go to the insurance companies. We don't want the people to decide. We don't want the people to have the money. The people on the world stage looking at this, especially in this country, of course, they're looking at this going, what do you mean we can't make our own decisions? What do you mean you don't want to give us the money? That doesn't make any sense. Trump, he put this out and said, the Unaffordable Care Act, which it is, sometimes referred to as Obamacare, must be replaced by payments being made directly to the people so they can buy their own health care rather than the bloated and uncaring insurance companies. Obamacare is not and never has been sustainable, and that is absolutely true. Kate responded to this and said, talk to anyone over 63 who had private insurance through a spouse who was a contractor, also known as small business owner, and you'll hear the exact same story every single time. It was manageable, predictable, and then Obamacare hit, and premiums went through the roof. The people who built their own livelihoods, who played by the rules, got crushed the hardest. Affordable care didn't make it more affordable. It flipped the script entirely. One of the biggest bait and switches ever sold to the American people. Everything the Democrats do turns into crap. And that's absolutely true. And once again, you can see that why would the small business be hit the hardest? Because again, what was their plan? To hit the small businesses very hard, to get rid of the small businesses, to make the insurance companies very, very wealthy, and to control the people. Why do you think the dictator had to put the penalty into place? You do what I say or you're penalized. You're penalized if you take it. You're penalized if you don't. That is what dictators do every single time. And think about Biden. Think about Obama. Now you're seeing the true dictators / kings. Very, very interesting. But you could see the rhinos. Basically, they're just Republicans dressed up as Democrats. So let's just call them Democrats. They're completely and utterly against Trump. They don't want to push any of the legislation that Trump wants. They don't want to confirm his nominations because if you're a Democrat, you don't want to do that. Amuse put this out and said, the Senate just held another pro forma session to prevent Trump from making any recess appointments. Trump is the first president in history to have his own party block his recess appointments. Trump shows great restraint by not calling Thune out every day for his obstruction. Well, it's really not his own party. It's actually the Democrats, because the rhinos are really Democrats. They're just dressed up in a costume. It's almost like when the men dress up as women, they're not really women, they're men. Well, the rhinos aren't really Republicans. If you remove the costume, they're actually Democrats. All you got to do is look at Liz Cheney and the rest. That should tell you everything you need to know right there. Now, when you look at the elections in Florida, you could see that there was cheating that was actually really going on. And we mentioned this yesterday where an individual was arrested and basically had the machines. But Tony Saruga pointed something out that was very, very interesting. It appears that Panici was in communication with Debbie Wasserman Schultz, D.C. office, over a dozen times since Christmas. If you recall, Wasserman and her assistant United States attorney in the District of Columbia, brother Stephen Wasserman, who bungled the case, provided cover for the Awan brothers, Imran Awan, Abid Awan, and Jamal Awan, who were Pakistani-American IT staffers who worked as a shared contracted technicians for numerous Democratic members of Congress. So did her office or someone else assist in all this to make sure that they were able to get the seat? It's starting to look that way. This is why we need all machines removed. This is why we need the Save America Act. This is why we need one-day voting. This is why we need paper ballots. This is why we need voter ID, because once again, you can see their cheating system. And again, you have to remember, on the local level, that is not secure yet. Just because you see things being changed, you see things happening right now, Trump is ensuring the national level when we have the midterms, making sure that those are protected. This is why he's done it in a level type of process, making sure that at every level we have protection. The Supreme Court with Election Day, birthright citizenship, no mail-in ballots. Yes, he's trying to push the Save America Act. If that doesn't work, then he has the executive order, because he's going to show that there's fraud in Fulton County, Georgia, fraud in Arizona, which will allow him to say, no, everyone has to show voter ID because it's a national security threat. So every step of the way, he's making sure that these people cannot cheat in the midterms. It doesn't mean there won't be some cheating. There will be. But if we all come out and we vote, we can override the system just like we did during the presidential election. Now, again, when the D's see this, what do you think they're going to do? They're going to try to delay. That's their magical word, delay the elections, make sure there are no elections. How would you do that? If you had riots and you had blackouts, maybe for because of cyber attacks, would that maybe delay the elections? Will they push to delay it? I'm not saying it's going to delay it, but will they try to push the delays? Will the fake news jump on board and say, oh, we can't have elections in these different blue cities? Because I do believe we're going to see a lot of the power outages are probably going to be in the blue areas to make sure that people don't vote, because those are the areas that they can control. But we'll have to watch that very, very carefully. But Tony Saruga also put this out and said, and he's pointing to Shiloh Marks, Senator Alex Padilla won by 2.399 million votes. California had 2.79 million duplicate registrations. Tony says, do the math. Democrats have likely not legitimately won a California election in decades. And that is absolutely true. And if you look around the country, the Democrats have never, they don't win the elections. They install themselves. Without the cheating system, they're screwed. And what needs to happen is we need to terminate the filibuster. I mean, Trump has been saying this over and over and over, and it should have been done as soon as Trump came into office and we took control of the House and Senate. But the problem is that we really don't have control over the Senate, because if you have Republicans, if you have Democrats dressed as Republicans, you don't really have control. But that is what needs to be done. And this is why Trump continually pushes this, because he knows exactly what's going to happen if the D's ever come into power. So why not head this off right now? And this is why Trump is pushing this. But he knows the rhinos aren't going to do this. And this is why he has other cards up his sleeve, because he's going to play those later. And you could see one of them is birthright citizenship. He put this out on Truth. He said, birthright citizenship is not about rich people from China and the rest of the world who want their children and hundreds of thousands more for pay to ridiculously become citizens of the United States of America. It is about the babies of slaves. We are the only country in the world that dignifies this subject with even discussion. Look at the dates of this long ago legislation, the exact end of the Civil War. The world is getting rich selling citizenship to our country, while at the same time laughing at how stupid our U.S. court system has become. Tariffs. Dumb judges and justices will not a great country make. And he's absolutely right. Now, the other thing that's very, very interesting is that the D's, they made a very, very big deal over the ballroom. And Trump has come out and let everyone know that they're building a military structure underneath the ballroom. And Clandestine says the following. It all makes sense now. The Dems, mainstream media, don't care about the ballroom. They're upset about what's beneath it. Trump just confirmed that the ballroom construction is a cover for some sort of subterranean military structure. Either something nefarious was already there and the U.S. military found it, or the U.S. military are creating something more secure that clearly the deep state are not happy about. The outrage over the White House ballroom construction was never about preserving history, taxpayer money, or any other bullshit reasons the Dems, mainstream media, have been spewing. This is a U.S. military operation, hence why the Dems have been squealing so much about it. So when you go back a little bit in time, the Presidential Emergency Operations Center, the main underground bunker command center under the East Wing, was originally built in 1941 and 1942 under President Franklin D. Roosevelt during World War II, right after Pearl Harbor, to protect against air raids. It was hidden by constructing the East Wing on top of it. It has been upgraded multiple times since then, post 9/11 for modern threats and other reasons. During Obama's presidency around 2010 to 2012, there was a large, approximately $376 million White House infrastructure project involving heavy underground excavation. Officially, it was for updating outdated utilities, electrical plumbing, and heating systems across the grounds. This sparked widespread speculation at the time about a new super bunker or something else. So the question is, what were they doing? Why were they updating electrical, plumbing, and other things? Were there tunnels built, or was it just for an underground bunker? Clandestine says, hear me out. Trump and the U.S. military have secured and or remodeling multiple subterranean structures at multiple locations across D.C. When Trump secured D.C. with the U.S. military National Guard in August 2025, the Trump admin publicly disclosed they were reviewing the Smithsonian tunnels and their full archives. Trump secured the Smithsonian tunnel network that runs beneath the Capitol and National Mall. Meanwhile, U.S. military presence was mainly focused on metro hubs like Union Station and other metro stations around the Capitol and the White House. When Trump was touring the Trump Kennedy Center in March of 2025, he criticized the $250 million allocated for unused underground rooms, to which he later announced the close of the Trump Kennedy Center for a 2-year renovation. In addition, now we know that the military are the ones who wanted the ballroom, not Trump. According to Trump himself, the ballroom is just a shed to cover whatever massive complex the U.S. military are building beneath the surface. What's my point? That there seems to be a focus on Subterranean D.C. As for what exactly is going on, I am unsure, but I know a trend when I see one. So, is it just to improve the tunnels, or was something else built during Obama and they wanted to shut that down and actually, since they're shutting it down, rebuild the entire bunker system? That is very, very interesting. Now, think about what we said from the very, very beginning. Trump is liberating us from the deep state system. And I think Brian Cates pretty much spells it out very simply. He's pointing to post 4962, November 11th, says, "Who are the silent thieves? Why are they manipulating you? How are they stealing your wealth? Bubble, crash, steal, lie, repeat. What is inflation? Monetary manipulation. Taxation without representation. Put an end to the endless. 1913. And yes, this goes back to the source, and that source is the Federal Reserve. That's when it was created." Brian Cates responded to what he put up and says, "Liberation Day of April 2nd, 2025 was about the beginning of putting an end to the endless. Only now are some of you beginning to understand what Trump has been doing for the last year." And then he says, and people are starting to slowly see what he meant by calling it Liberation Day. They're starting to see the evil system he is liberating us from, and who owns and controls that system. And that is exactly what he's doing. So when you see the military doing military ops across the globe, the military was the only way to remove the entrenched enemy. And you're seeing it play out in real time. Trump is not bringing us to war. He's not bringing us to World War III. He's removing the deep state system. That is what you're witnessing. Why? Because the patriots are in control. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.